Well, welcome everyone. I'm very glad to see your faces. I'm glad to be back in the Big Leap Bridge. We've had a little quieter time in our bridge classes, so I'm really excited to be back and going. My name is Michelle Yasuda, if you don't know me, and I'm the program director for the Big Leap Home online programs. And those programs are within the Foundation for Conscious Living, which is the beautiful gift to the world of the Hendricks, their nonprofit. So these programs support individuals, organizations, and communities in generating agency, connection, and creativity on our shared planet. That always gives me a little burst of joy. So the call that you're on this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you are, is one of the ways that we express this in the world. So I just have a couple of logistics and then we're going to get right into the call. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we have the Hendricks community on the Mighty Networks, which is an online gathering space for us to connect with each other in between these calls. You'll hear about the latest events like this call, and you'll also find beautiful practices and tools for the Hendricks work without all of the distraction of ads that I find on other kind of platforms. So it's beautiful because it's just our community. That is, I think, everything that I want to share. I know that Patrick and Sibylle will share more about cultivating, so I'll let you share about that class, and because I do want to let everyone know about that. And so, in our tradition in the Big Leap Bridge world, we start by handing off the call with an appreciation. So I'm very excited to be welcoming Patrick and Sibylle today, and I'm going to give an appreciation to Patrick. So Patrick, I don't know how many years, well, it's almost a decade actually. I do know how many years I've known you. And I have really wonderful memories of playing together at trainings in person.
Mm.
And what I appreciate about you is how you can pull concepts together into form. And in this case, the various handouts and tools and practices that the Hendricks create or people create, and you bring them into form in such creative, delightful, and accessible ways. And so I really want to appreciate you for that. And I'm going to go ahead and hand the call over to you, Patrick.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And
Mhm.
I'm appreciating your ability to appreciate.
Hmm.
Excellent at that.
Oh, thank you. I think it's the years of practice. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And I'm going to appreciate Sibylle for her genius in staying with the simple things that are effective, that are the through line. And that was really one of the the major threads for developing the planner in my experience was all these different options and opportunities that we had, but Sibylle's genius of staying on the through line of what's most important.
Thank you.
And
And I'm going to appreciate Patrick for what I call his Patrick moves, which was me being fairly new to the Hendrix tools in comparison to him. And you listened to my puppy energy and my, this is exciting, and we can do this and that and that and that. And then you did the simple, oh, yeah, you mean that? And then there it was. There was the exactly what we wanted to bring into the creation. So
mhm.
I really learned to appreciate that and look out for it, actually.
Mm.
And Michelle, I want to appreciate you for your playfulness and the joy and the love that I feel when I interact with you. It's such a it's such fun to be connected to you and explore these things together.
Hmm. Thank you.
Hmm. Okay, and I'm appreciating all of you here on the call for being here and
Mm.
being interested in the habit of cultivating new stories every day. So that is something that I find very exciting and heartwarming to see that there are so many of us who learn these tools and want to incorporate them into their lives and play with them. So thank you for being here, and big appreciations for having an interest in that. And having mentioned the title of this class, The Habit of Cultivating New Stories Every Day, what I want to say about that as an introduction is it has the word habit in it, the daily habit of doing something, and which is kind of like a daily practice. And I mean, I'm guessing many of you will have some sort of daily practices, even if it's just brushing your teeth. That's a daily practice. And other things can be, whatever you do in your day, whether it's meditation or yoga or anything that you do on a daily basis. And the magic I find in that is really that those things are good for us once. And when we repeat them and make them a daily practice and therefore a habit, then they open to even more. And for example, if you want to learn playing the piano, or if you want to run a marathon, you don't do it just once and go, okay, now I'm playing the piano, or now I can run because I ran once. You practice, you repeat and repeat and repeat, and therefore you build a habit. And if that sounds crazy and strange now, like I'm never going to play a symphony on the piano, I want to appreciate all of you for one thing that you did in your lives already, which is going from a little human being that had these extremities hanging off their body, which were moving in ways that they couldn't quite control. And, it was difficult to lift your head on your own. And through the daily practice of learning how to move and learning how to walk, I'm assuming most of us will be capable of walking right now. And then, of course, there is maybe the loss of that facility and then the repractice. All of this is part of life. And there is a way of going from one point to the other. And it's a daily practice. And you are all capable because you've done a lot already in your lives. So in that sense, what we noticed and what we both have in our lives, we have daily practices that we shared with each other at the beginning of creating the planner. And we noticed that we like the Hendricks tools to become a daily habit as well. A lot of them work amazingly if you do them just once. If you are in fear and do fear melters, that can shift rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm noticing my breath right now, so a yes breath can really open up your breathing and can open you to presence. And that is great. And if you do it regularly, if we do it repetitive in repetition, then we might remember fear melters in the moment when we are in fear. And it becomes a habit. It becomes something, a go-to thing, like a go-to music practice or sports practice or anything. So we wanted to create something that could support us. That was the initial idea, that it supports us and that can support you in, using these amazing tools that Gay and Katie Hendricks have developed and bringing them into a daily practice, a daily habit.
Mm-hmm.
And this something is the daily planner and exploration journal, the Cultivating New Stories for Humanity daily planner and exploration journal. And I can see, yes, some people have them already. Hooray! So if you've already got them, you can file through them as we go. And we're going to introduce that a little bit now. And I'll hand over to Patrick to go into the nitty-gritty details.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which I can see is showing up now. And this is an example of one of the planner pages. And speaking to what Sibylle was talking about with wanting to make the Hendricks practices or incorporate them as daily practices for more embodied learning and know-how. we have a morning routine and an evening routine. But what I'm going to start with is over here on the top right is the today is. So getting aligned with what day today is. Today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. And so there's a space for you to write the date. There's a space for doing today's verbs. You can do 1, 2, or 3. There at the beginning of the planner, there is a page that supports you with a list of verbs and has space to write some new ones that you think of or that inspire you that you discover elsewhere. Our verb list is by no means exhaustive, but we did go through it a few times to make sure that the ones that we really liked were in there. And over here on the top left, you'll see the aliveness. And this is, 1 is clearly meh, barely moving my body. I'm having big struggles. 10 is like, woohoo, everything is great. And one way that I've been using this is to circle the number in the morning, but I had the thought yesterday that I could put a dot above and a dot below. So like yesterday I would have done a dot at 6 in the morning saying, okay, I'm at a 6. And by the end of the day, I was more about an 8.5 to 9 after having engaged with things. And so up here in the morning practices, you'll see that there's yes breath and fear melters dance, which is on every single page of the planner for daily pages. And then there is a monthly practice. That's what this left hand, right hand is. This one's for the first month. And then you'll see there's 2 more spaces over here where you can put in your own practices and things that you do. For me, I put an I and then a heart and then an EPW, which stands for the I and the heart is my inner work, my own personal inner work, and doing some affirmations in the mirror and touching with those things. And EPW is essence pace walk, is making sure I walk, even if it's like just going through the grocery store that day at my essence pace. I make sure to do essence pace at certain points during the day. And then over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that you've got your hours of the day in 24-hour format so that the Europeans, that they feel welcome and that this is their planner too. You don't have to use this space in that way, but I recommend it. And then at the bottom, you'll see that there is yes breath, fear melters dance, matching, and then again, 2 more spaces for putting in your own practices. And we included yes breath and fear melters dance in the morning and in the evening for all pages because they are essential practices and processes to embody. For me, the more I've done fear melters, particularly as a dance, not just doing fear melters, but as a dance, it has shown up for me, like Sibylle was mentioning, where I've remembered, oh yeah, I can do fear melters. But one of the coolest ahas for me was when I felt my body just wanting to do some wiggling in response to some fear that I was experiencing around people that had no idea what fear melters were. But that was just one of those like, ooh, I like that feeling. And then you see we have the basic practice, which the basic practice is, let me just check in one moment. Am I getting ahead of us here?
No.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we wanted to do the basic practice in full later on, but
Yeah. So the basic practice, well, I'll just mention it right now, is that's really in terms of dropping old stories and stepping into or creating new stories, choosing to be a creator of your own stories. The basic practice is the main feature in the planner for that, because it is every day it's going to have you look through what happened, what your stories were, what your results were, and taking that all the way through wonder and what you want to create, and then actually taking an action step and celebrating yourself for taking that action step. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more later. And then up here, this space is one that we earmarked, although I tend to use most of the space over in this area as well and just write my hourly stuff in the early mornings smaller. But this space is for answering the questions, because each month, or really it's themes, each theme has a morning set of questions and a morning practice. And like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, this left hand, right hand is the first practice for the first month, or is the practice for the first month. And so each subsequent month has a different practice in place of what left hand, right hand shows here. And the 12 themes they do not correspond precisely to the months. And this is actually intentional. There are 360 days of daily pages that are associated with themes. So you've got the 12 themes, 30 days for each theme. And then you might notice, okay, the math doesn't add up for a full year. So at the end of the planner, we have 6 pages, in case it's a leap year. We have 6 pages for you that are an end of year transition. And so you'll have the 12 themes with 30 days in each theme. And then at the end of the year, the 6 pages to finish out the year. And so that you don't get all mucked up with like, by going by weeks and am I on the right week and all that sort of thing. Every 8th page in the planner is an old week, new week transition page. And hopefully I can bring that up to demonstrate that.
I think, yeah, we can do that also later on because we want
Later
to
on?
go into
Okay.
the themes. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to focus now on the individual 12 themes.
Yes. And these themes come from, Michelle mentioned it already earlier. The themes are the themes that are the content of the Cultivating New Stories for Humanity seminar that has just started and is still open for registration until April 15th. It's Katie's new seminar. It runs for a year, and it has the content, as the title suggests, Cultivating New Stories for Humanity. And our planner project was our contribution to the seminar to support you and us, all of us, in living these themes, incorporating these themes, living into these themes of the year. So the themes are, hold on, let me just read them off. And yes, and what we're doing now is we're going to share the theme page of every theme, and I invite you to let yourself just absorb what you're seeing and maybe notice what is happening inside you as you listen to the content of these, to the topics, and in the context of cultivating new stories for humanity. So the first theme is opening to contact and being affected. The second one is transforming fear to presence, protection to connection, work to play. The third one is changing thoughts and internal states by choice. The fourth one is living in the deep power of integrity. The fifth one is listening with generous appreciation. The next one is giving attention with flexibility and focus. And then we have choosing from a clear experience of yes and no. Then discerning what happened from the story. Freeing and expressing your essential self. And then knowing how to reliably get things done. There's the baby again.
I'm going to just interject. This is my favorite of the drawings.
Yeah.
The baby on the subtle downhill.
You all did that already. You know how to reliably get things done. And then the 11th theme is getting relentlessly, radically real. That's a tongue twister. And now comes my favorite, dancing with contexts. So these are all skills that we can cultivate in ourselves to cultivate new stories for humanity. As Katie says, she believes that's dearly needed in today's world. So that is the content of the seminar. And these themes show up, as Patrick explained. We have them. We have 30 days of these themes in those 12 sections of our planner, and they all, the questions, the morning questions, and the practices all support us in shifting out of an old story into a new story. So does what Patrick already mentioned, the weekly transition page, which is, are we pulling that up?
Yeah, I'm going to pull that up. One thing I want to note before we get into the old week, new week transition page is part of the purpose in having you or having in the planner one set of questions and one practice to focus on for each of the themes is that, at least personally, I have found it highly valuable to go back over questions that I thought I knew the answers to and to find something else coming through me, to find another way, to find stories or answers that I was not expecting and ones that I have not told myself before.
Yes.
So I just wanted to mention that as part of my motivation for wanting just singular focus in the themes.
Yes, and I have had a similar experience of, there are some questions that invite you to have a new answer every day, like what is the strongest sensation in your body is a question that can change. And then there are some other questions that maybe, how do you notice when you are in fear? You might think, okay, that's always the same for me, until you try answering that question every single day. And then notice changes. I found that there are some questions where I myself, even though I chose them together with Patrick, I had a resistance to, okay, well, maybe we have to change that. I don't know whether that's worthwhile answering every single day. And then I leaned into it and I noticed, yes, actually the answers do shift, they change, they open up things. And that again is the power of creating a habit and creating a re-engagement with those practices and shifting our perception, basically shifting into a new view, a new context. And now I forgot, who is doing the weekly transition page? Are you describing that or me?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Speaking of shifting, okay, so at the end of each week, so because we've just explained to you that we are playing a little bit with the days of the year, and it's 30 days for every theme, and then there are 6 days at the end. We thought, okay, let's stay with one thing that is familiar and well established. A week has 7 days. So you do get weeks that are 7 days long. The thing is, you can start the planner any day of the week at any day in the year. So if you choose that, then that's going to be the first day of your week. But every week has 7 days. And the last page in the week, the 8th page of every week, is this old week, new week transition page that has practices to support you in leaving the old week behind and moving into the new week. In other words, that was then, this is now.
You'll see a little form of that right here with that was last week, this is now.
Which was one of the Patrick moves. When he said that, I said that has to go in.
We adapted that was then, this is now.
Yeah.
To make it last week.
Yeah. And so one practice is FACT, facing, accepting, choosing, and taking action. And that invites us to look at what happened in the past week. And there might be things that we don't agree with, we have resistance to, we would have wanted differently. So there's a chance for facing that, accepting that, choosing what we really want for the next week, and then taking action. And the action that we want to take, we can put in this section below, in the I choose to do next week section. So that can be, you can call it a to-do list, and it can also be an intentional action step list, which has a what section and a by when do I want to do that section. And then the other wonderful practice that I love very much is blame talk versus conscious heart talk, which shifts how we talk about ourselves or how we talk to others. And both of these practices, and actually all the practices that we mentioned, are explained in the beginning of the planner. And we also have created an online page, which we intend to fill with more, but there are explanations for all these practices. And then there is a old habit, new action, and affirmation section, which again is language-based, where you can transform the way you think or the way you act and think about it into a new affirmation to shift how you are in the world, how your beingness in the world. And now Yeah.
So, well, before we leave the old week, new week transition page, I want to mention that. So at the end of the week, if you look back at your previous pages and you're somebody that struggles with, procrastination or getting things done or whatever it is, you can put those down on your I choose to do next week. So then you've got that one page to go back to of, okay, here's my list from the previous week or the previous weeks that is not yet accomplished that I want to look into. All right, when do I want to put these on the planner in the coming days?
Yeah. And yes, now to the core, to the most important practice in the planner, the basic practice. Patrick has mentioned that already a little bit. We have chosen, that was pretty much clear from very early on in the development, the basic practice as the through line of the planner. So we can engage with that every day. And I hand it over to you too.
Yeah, so I'm sharing right now what it's actually one of the end of year transition pages, one of those 6 pages that I mentioned that doesn't fall within the other themes. And these pages have their own questions on them. But I'm just sharing this to mostly just to share the basic practice again, so that those of you that aren't as familiar with it can see it. Traditionally within the Hendricks community, the basic practice has been a bit more extensive in terms of the words that are used to invite you to complete each one of these categories, but we went with something as simple as possible. Just did it down to as simple as possible and trusting that you all will still get the value out of engaging with the practices and tuning in with your authenticity and using your tools. And so the basic practice, the first section of it is the what happened. And this is a factual accounting. It's story free. There's no narratives. There's no descriptors. It's not so and so came storming in the door and was yelling, screaming. It was like John came inside or John stepped into the room. And then my stories. He was irate. He was angry. He was upset about something that had nothing to do with me. That's the my stories and narratives. And then given the results, my commitments are. And so the commitments are not just the, oh, I'm committed to doing this consciously, but the unconscious commitments is really what we're looking at here, or what you could consider counter commitments, or even what some people in more harsh language would call sabotage. But mostly it's, okay, I'm experiencing things. These are my results. That's what my results are, is what I'm experiencing, what's happening for me and in my life and in the interactions that I'm having with others. And so I can write those down, and those are what my commitments are. So I'm committed to being afraid of John. I'm committed to hearing somebody angry and then letting my nervous system get all riled up in response to it. And then the next section, what can I learn here? That's really where you're turning to curiosity. And if you're dealing with something kind of sticky, I recommend using some fear melters or some matching to align your inner feelings and experience with your outer expression to help you open up flow, to help you open up your creative juices. And well, I'm going to out myself here. Sometimes I do just say and leave it at, what can I learn here? Because I feel really blocked with it. And
that's okay.
And similar, I'm going to go back to the questions that we ask you to engage with, or that's in the planner for you to engage with each day of the year. When you're repeatedly going through some of those questions, it's okay to have, I wonder, and then, say the question to yourself out loud and put it into your wonder space, and to be doing it in a genuinely friendly, curious way for yourself, or curiosity infused way is what I mean. And so, what can I learn here? Oh, I can learn, using my reference of this guy, John, storming into the house, or my perception of him storming into the house. I can learn that I'm still organized to be reactive to other people. And I can recognize, oh, I notice I'm reactive, and I can do my fear melters, and I can move and shift. And oh, John and I actually had a decent conversation after things calmed down. And what do I really want to create is where the juice, I think, starts to really flow in. And, in this case, it might be, oh, I want to create easy interactions with John. So I have a request if he's really frustrated and angry to come in the door, not so hot, come in the door and let me know I'm upset about something. Are you available to hear me? Making a request with that friendship or whatever it is. And so then maybe out of that, my simplest action step is to make that request of John. And often my celebrations are things that involve chocolate or hugging Sibylle or giving her a kiss or some sort of connection to keep the feeling of appreciation and action and opening of energy moving for me. Um, and sometimes it's actually I mentioned earlier in the call that one of my personal practices that I put up in that top right space is an eye and then a heart for my inner work. Sometimes I go and I do just a little bit of inner work, kind of like a love scoop where I'm just giving myself a love hug in the mirror while I'm talking to my inner world and appreciating it. Um, so there's going to be time. I think we've got enough time at the end of the call in a few minutes for the last 15 minutes or so of this call to be Q&A. So we can go back over the basic practice and if you've got any questions about that. But for right now, what we would like to shift to.
Maybe we stop the screen share because I would love to see all these lovely people here.
Yes.
Yes. For right now, what we wanted to, well, actually, I just want to see whether you're all still alive and breathing, as Katie always checks. Yes, Sherry's alive. Great. Channel's alive too. Shelley's alive. Great. I'm loving it. So yes, because there has been a lot of written word and screen share. So here we are doing a little bit of matching. And what I would like to add to what we just said is that, okay, I'm typing this out later on and I'm not talking and typing at the same time. What I would like to add is that while this is part of the planner, I hope whether you have the planner or not, whether you're waiting for it still or not, or whether you never plan to actually get the planner, my hope is that it will be for you also a kind of a landing to engage with your practices, whether they are Hendricks tools or whether they are other things that you do as a self-care practice for yourself, in a new way, in some way, and reflect on that and just see what comes up for you. Because yes, I've noticed in our working on this and our playing with this mainly, and reflecting on the various things I've done in my life over the years, that this topic of daily habit is really something that I'm passionate about, because I've noticed such amazing shifts in implementing what I'm learning and then actually going with it, not just letting it fly by. Okay, yeah, that was that, but really trying it out and playing with it and doing it wrong. There's plenty of space to do things wrong in this planner. You can, take a marker and just scratch it all over if you don't like what you're seeing, and if you feel like it, and if something needs to come out. And yeah, so we wanted to share a few things in how we use the planner, and then maybe also other ways of using it that we haven't thought of yet, or that we are not implementing yet, but that maybe other people will want to do. And yes, then go into a Q&A for you to ask us questions.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you using the planner?
So I'm actually using it way more the way we designed it than I was expecting. Because when we got into designing this, I've been doing my own planners for a few years now, where I had all 7 days on 2 pages, and every day at the end of the day, I would go through what have I accomplished, what's still hanging for the next day, or what still needs to be accomplished for the next day, or what's new and needs to go on the schedule. And I would put my personal practices first at the top of my daily plans. And when we designed this, it worked surprisingly well for me to incorporate what I was already doing. I thought I had way more things to write in at the top of the planner for the morning practices. But what I found was just going through the yes breath and the fear melters dance, that already kind of checked some of the other boxes that I was doing ahead of time or was doing before off for me. And so the way that I'm using the planner now is the way we've described it to you. I do the morning practices that are listed, the morning questions, and you can see maybe on here, maybe not, that I've got an I heart and then an EPW, and that this particular day was quite empty because I was in travel. And so it just says flying back to California. And then down around 11 o'clock at night, it says home. At least that was the intention. I got home a little later than that. But so I still use my process of looking at what's happened today, and then at the end of a day, going through and adding that to my next day's plan, writing out. Sometimes I do it where I write it next to the hours where they're supposed to be. Sometimes I just write things in priorities in terms of what needs to be done first. But I start the day with the morning practices, the aliveness rating, choosing my verbs or my verb, checking in with what day it is to make sure I know what day it is, because there's a lot of news in the world and it gets kind of confusing because some of these days overlap and it feels like we're going backwards sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not sure the day is at fault here, but yeah.
Yeah. Not really the day's fault, but
Yeah.
I want to be in tune with that. And then my go-to with this in the evenings, like I said, is to take what I've got on one day that is incomplete and move that over to the next day, and so I can keep track of my ongoing lists and to do evening practices. But really, my main focus in the evening these days has been the basic practice, and going with what's the first thing that pops in for me. So it used to be I would go for, oh, let me find one that's really juicy and good. Let me get the biggest bang for my buck out of this. And it's like, well, I've got 365 of these opportunities in here. And also, I've found myself doing in my own head when I'm out in the day, doing a light basic practice, just a very quick bare bones version of it, just to notice, okay, what just happened? What stories was I making up about that? What am I committed to experiencing right now through this? And taking note that, oh, I'm committed to experiencing those things, and I'm also doing a basic practice. So I'm committed to responding to those things too. And then, going down through the rest of it and usually finding an action step that's very quick and in the moment for me so that I can immediately put that in. I used to want to plan all of my action steps out to be part of a larger plan, and that has its time and its place. But I found with the daily practice, just going in with what's fresh right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to describe your usage of the planner?
Yes. So what I've noticed, I'm doing it a lot, like the planner suggests, and I have a few additions. So, for example, the additions with the little empty dots where we add our own practices, where we can add our own practices, they are usually for me yoga and a walk. And I've just noticed that I want to shift that, and I want to put the yoga and a walk in the evening, and put qigong and meditation in the morning. So I'm experimenting with that a bit. And one thing I do, hold on, let me get mine so you can see it.
Oh yeah, this is cool.
What? That?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't going to share that, but now that you say it's cool.
This is an addition to, so this is not included in the planner. This is something you would need to add for yourself, but I love the idea.
And who knows, maybe it goes in addition to. So
sounds like I might be designing a page soon.
Oh yeah, maybe. So what I did is I got a grid of the months of the year, and I color in how I feel. So there's 5 different colors. And as you can see, I've had a pretty good year so far because blue is the worst. And I haven't had much blue. So, and yellow is great. So I'm doing okay. So I like the color part of that. And I've thought about, since Patrick came up with this idea of having morning and evening for the aliveness circle, I thought maybe I do my colors with the aliveness tracker and do a morning color and an evening color and see how the colors and the numbers match up, and get some alchemistic stuff going on there. And what I also do is I take the affirmation from the weekly pages. Okay, I've scribbled a lot here, so I'm not going to show that to you because it looks horrible. I judge my writing. What I do is I write them at the top of every, up there. I write all 3 affirmations from the week at the top of every page. So I have 1 week of repetition of those affirmations. For example, one is I'm deciding for myself. That was last week or the week before. And I'm choosing, somewhere here is I'm facing things with ease. I like that when I landed on that. So moving from the space of, it started with postponing, and then I moved into I face things, and the affirmation was I'm facing things with ease. So I add those. And I noticed I'm not doing an intentional yes breath in the evening. I tend to incorporate yes breath into my day by now. So I'm doing it wrong. And I invite you to all do it wrong as well if you want to. And yes, I mean, I'm assuming there are many ways you can use this. You can definitely, we intended it to be open for you to use it in different ways. I'm seeing here in the chat someone, Zoe wrote, love the colors. Yes, please color in the graphics if you want. That's one thing, or use colors in any way, shape or form to engage with that planner. So, another thing I'm doing is in the body shapes, and I think we might have actually also suggested that in the suggestions. At the weekly transition page, I put marks. Where is it? I mark that body part that I feel strongest in at the moment. So this is the figure on the side. And there was a lot of going on in my heart space. So that gets a little mark. It's like the note taking of where in my body is something happening. So there are probably quite a few ways of using that.
Yeah. And if you wanted to, you don't need to use this as a planner at all.
Yeah.
You could just use it as an exploration journal and tracking what's up for you and what you're doing and the things that are kind of lingering in your life in some capacity, which could be business, work related, family related. It could be just social things, and by what I mean, these things in your life is like the stuff that comes up in an FACT. What haven't I been facing? Or that comes up in a basic practice of, oh, I'm committed to having these gruff interactions with so and so, and so so you don't necessarily have to use the hours that are listed down the left hand side of all the daily pages to schedule your plans for the day. It could just be, this is a way for you to continue to explore. And I want to mention that at first, the first few days you use the planner, it may take a little while to get through the practices and to kind of get your legs underneath you, but hopefully you'll be friendly with yourself around that process and know that you will get a little bit faster at that. And then there will be a few days that will happen because stuff's going on in your life where it will take a little bit longer because it gets a bit more real. And maybe there's tears, or maybe there's some big feelings or something that want to come through that need to be felt and moved and participated with.
Yes, and our intention is for this to also be a place where that can happen, and where you actually there, the introduction pages, we haven't shown them yet, but if you get one of the planners, by the way, this is the link in case you want to get one. There you can order, and we're adding more countries soon. So far, it's a process. I'm just saying it's a complicated process, but there will be more countries soon. So we intended this to be a space for this happening, and you can go back to the practices in the introduction pages and check in with what might be useful now. And what we haven't mentioned is throughout the planner, there are QR codes that lead to that web space where the practices are mentioned, and there are references to the Hendricks website and mainly to the Foundation for Conscious Living, so you can learn more and engage more with it. And if you really want to dive into this practice of cultivating new stories for humanity, there's the seminar that we already mentioned. We might want to put that back in. And yeah, so it's an open invitation to use it in the way that supports you best. And I personally like that it is all in one thing, that I can put my dentist appointment and having to check my car in the same space where I do my self-care. So I don't have to carry around a whole library when I move around. So, and yeah, maybe this is the time, unless, do you have anything
Q&A.
more to add? Okay, so maybe this is the time to open the floor for questions and for suggestions. And also, we are really curious about when you all start using it, what your observations are and what you want to see more of, what works for you, how it works for you, and so on. So we'd love to hear from you about how you use this planner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Leslie.
You're muted.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself. And it looks like you're on a phone. Ah, there we go.
Well, I can't wait to get mine in the mail. So some of the things I've been around a little bit, but not a whole lot. And so, like, I don't know what the
FACT?
fear melter
Feel it.
dance is, and I hadn't heard the FACT, and I didn't know what the matching was. I don't know if today's an appropriate time to mention that, or to go to a resource, or we'll be covering that sooner, or
Yeah, so the introductory pages in the planner, they contain information about each of the practices and processes. And then, like Sibylle just mentioned a few moments back, there is a web page that we were putting together on the Hendricks website that's available when you use the QR code that will have more information about each of the practices and processes. We're in the process of building that page out.
And yeah, there is the two you just mentioned. There is an introductory page about the fear melters and about FACT in the planner itself.
okay.
And and Michelle just put the video resource for the fear melters from the Foundation for Conscious Living in there. Patrick said it, there are QR codes that take you to resources because yes, when you start out, all of this can feel very confusing, and it's maybe a language that doesn't make sense to you immediately. And we did our best to connect you with resources so you can.
Yeah, I think the resources are abundant. I feel good about it. And
Great.
I've got mine on order, and
Mhm.
I just really, I'm doing an inner commitment to really doing it because I see how beneficial it could be if I do. So I just want to set myself up well and let it be a new practice, which would be a big, big, big step.
Beautiful.
I appreciate you taking that step.
Yes, and hopefully you will have fun with it and play with it.
Fun sounds good. Thank you.
Yes.
LA, I think you're muted.
I do love it. The simplicity really fits for me, and the clarity. I've started looking forward to doing it before I do anything else in the morning. And I have added in my figures and my colors.
Yay.
It's so fun and meaningful both. And I find that the things I practiced in the other classes are now coming home to me. And like you said, Patrick, I can do it quickly during the day. I don't have to go back. And what you did today, the part I was missing was the what happened. And I can see how that specific thing, it's like a zipper, all those steps like zip down. And now I know how to use it even better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to mention that it often takes quite a long time and then some recommitting as well, after thinking you've got it, where you can do the what happened and what my
Oh, yeah.
stories are, because usually the stories creep into the what happened. And that's
Oh, yeah.
often a very juicy thing to begin to interact with in a
Yes.
friendly, soft way.
And that's why I love recommitting on the back. I keep that as a very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love it. And I think it's invaluable for new stories.
You want to show this one?
I can see all the work you did too, as well as your
Mhm.
talent. So I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and for those that don't have a copy of the planner yet, what LA was just mentioning was this how people think commitment, and you choose, you jump in, and then you realize your dreams and goals versus you get started and then you go all over the place before you actually get there.
Yes.
Yes, and we had a chat about what we're going to put at the back on the back cover, and then very quickly landed on
Yeah.
that's a good reminder to have there.
Yeah.
So because
No sales pitch, just content.
yeah, and it's a daily planner and it's something to engage with daily. And if you fall off the bandwagon, that's part of the process. That's what's to be expected. So that friendliness of the recommitting, we wanted that to be in there. And actually, now talking about friendliness and recommitting and all of that, of course, I mean, all these things are based on and are sometimes directly taken from what Katie and Gay Hendricks are teaching. So it's basically their work fit into that form. So that's what they remind us of.
And I want to point out something that Michelle shared in the chat here about the basic practice, that she likes speaking unarguably for the what happened, as in I feel angry or my throat feels tight. That's a great starting point as well.
Yeah, and speaking unarguably is usually done by focusing on something that's going on inside you, because that is something people cannot argue with. You have the knowledge of it.
Well, some people try, but that usually gives you an indication of how well that relationship is going to be going in the future.
Yeah, so it is something that you notice inside yourself, and that can be feelings, sensations, emotions, thoughts, anything that's going on inside you. So those things are your unarguable truth, or as Katie, I think, prefers to use it now, speaking from discovery, exploring and bringing up what's in there. Yeah, channel.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Leslie, when you said you hadn't had an experience of fear melters, this is not a sell. This is available. Darlene and I run a free each week a fear melters gathering, and it's 11:30 a.m. PST Monday. You will hear my New Zealand accent. I know the New Zealand time really well in my head. But we literally run 4 songs, and the invitation is to do the fear melter response for each song, or move your body however you want. So if anyone wants to be added to the email list, find out about it. It's free. Just drop your email in the chat and I'm happy to include you in the weekly that goes out.
Yeah, and that's
so
the fear
great.
melters dance. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. And it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, channel, there are some emails coming up for Fear Melters Dance Party. You need to grab them all now.
Yes.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, and just to mention again on the Fear Melters app, sorry. No, that's not what I was talking about. The Fear Melters dance, putting on a song and dancing to that and making sure it's at least 2 minutes. That's really helpful so that you can let your brain check out and really go into your body and what you're experiencing.
And yeah, and as we said before, it's one of the touchstones of transforming fear into presence and play. And for me, it really helps me remember it when I'm in fear. if I do it every day in the morning as a dance because it's fun. And then when there's fear happening, I wiggle or I root or I love scoop. Simon and Irini.
Hey, this is not really a question. More like I was going to say something about this book. We just literally got hands on it. I think yesterday.
2 days ago.
Or 2 days ago.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But I flipped through it, and to be honest, it's kind of daunting because it looks like a lot, right? But actually, this has been really helpful. And I counted there's like 8 pages at the beginning that you actually have to read for people who are scared of reading or feel overwhelmed. And so this is just, it looks so well done. You guys have done an amazing job. Yeah, I'm talking about myself, basically. That, because there's a lot there. But, and this on the back, because if you if you put it face down, it's staring at you, right? To commit. So yeah, I just want to say you guys put a lot of work into this. And it shows your care and how deeply thought out, how much thought you put into it. And we're very new to Hendricks' work, but we have worked with Sibylle. With her, she's coached us really, really beautifully. And so I'm an aspiring longevity coach, and I can see that I will be recommending this to my future clients because I think this is going to help people live longer, basically, by dealing with stuff so that's great. So well done to you two, and thanks for making this. So
I love it. I'm recovering from bronchitis. Sorry about the voice. I love it. We were just deciding which color now. Shall we go for the obvious? But I left you a voicemail, I know, because I just was like, this is so beautiful. Look at these drawings. And I do feel if I was in that bottom diagram, I'm somewhere in the lost section at the moment, and it gives you hope. I listening to you, I suppose I did have a question, which is it's funny, I realize I'm quite cynical about change. Like every new year I make resolutions, and then I let myself down, and it's really, really getting to me existentially. So this is really life-changing because I'm not fulfilling my potential. I've got ADHD and I'm sure, I'm just chaotic. And I'm always asking Sibylle for help about that. So often I go, what do you do again? Tell me again how you do these things. And now it's all here. So, but I feel it's far reaching, the fact of not fulfilling potential or having bursts of self-development and bursts of self-inquiry, which is where I go. I kind of have bursts of transformation and then I go back, and I do feel it makes me unhappy, especially as, I'm getting older, I'm aware of time passing. So this is really, it makes me really moved in hearing you both. I just wondered if you could share, if what your experiences of having done this for so long, since you work with the Hendricks community, if you have time, and there's a lot to ask, but if you feel on a cellular level, something shifted now. So rather than you doing the exercises.
I mentioned that I was doing my own planner where I'd write out, I had these spaces for each day of the week, and I would write out each night, I would write out for the next day my morning routine. I'd write out my priority list of tasks for clients, my hanging list of things I called it my hanging list because it was just the list of items that would, it just keeps growing. I get it chunked down, life throws more at me. Okay, here's 6 more things on there. And then my evening routines. And in the process of doing all of that, with Hendricks practices and with some of my own in there, I felt okay, I'm giving myself a structure here. And now that we've got the planner, and I made the transition from dropping what I had been using for a few years to using this, I've got the sense that I've got myself with my self-care now. And when I'm out of my routines, it doesn't throw me in the way that it used to, but I notice and I respond. And I choose things I didn't do my morning walk that I had been doing for years. Now I'm going to do some afternoon exercise thing and then go for a walk and shift up how I'm doing this. That there's, for me, there's a bit more of there's self-confidence and trust that, I've got my basic self-care practices in place. and that this has now become an extension of that for me. And it was a process, because I'm somebody that had come from massive amounts of inner critical dialogue and self-criticism, along with just a sense of heaping of shame and guilt that I'm not doing things perfectly. And part of the reason that the planner is so open from not having lots of content for folks to go through, even though there's practices and processes you need to learn, there isn't a whole ton of questions. There aren't like 50 different questions each month, that's to allow space for folks to develop their own things with this structure. That, again, the 12 themes, it's to impart 360 days plus 6 days at the end of the year, so that you can reorient your structures in the way that you structure your life around what you're doing, around not necessarily the planner, but using the planner as a structure, rather than using, the regular months of the year and what's happening out there. This is my exploration planner and journal that gives me a through line. And I'm going with those rhythms.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, and I'm also mindful of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You. So just a short add, that what I've noticed, because you asked whether I've noticed something on a cellular level, I have. For me, osmosing Katie is one of the most, and osmosing meaning having her teaching impress me, or me just absorbing what she's doing. So that has been one of the most joyful things I've done over the last few years. And I have the planner reminds me of some of that. And I feel it's an opening to, I can fill my days with focusing on that rather than focusing on other things. So when I don't do some of the practices, I don't judge myself for that, and I don't tell myself that I haven't done it right, but it's more like, there's more to occupy myself with that, rather than with things that bring me down, that annoy me, and that would basically decultivate my humanity. So to bring it back to that. And what I'm also noticing is that I feel that there is room for engaging with that, and there is power and magic in community. So again, if you want to join the seminar, it's a great thing. And also, if you want to join the Mighty Networks Hendrick community, having other people doing this is really helpful for the cynicism, because I have an inner cynic too. And having peers, just play with that, playmates basically, really helps. So that would be my 2 cents about that.
And
Really, thank you so much for those answers.
The very last thing that I have before we hand it back over to Michelle is that it's valuable to even start with just doing one practice that's in there, and just starting with that one practice, and adding your own practices to the pages that you do anyway, and just adding in one thing that you feel is easy or is simple for you to integrate, and then going from there. You don't have to try to, as the saying goes, eat the whole elephant all at once. You can do, I don't really like that saying anymore. You don't have to eat cake all at once. You can just take a little nibble of a flower off of the icing off the top, and then go with the next piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I notice that when I do that, it leads to the next, and it leads to the next, and it leads to the next, right? It's a natural opening of something else. Well, I want to thank you both so much for this very rich, beautiful class and exploration. And thank you all for being here with us, and for your great questions that opened up lots of discovery. So, so last words from you two on this?
If you have any questions on the Mighty Networks, go ahead and post questions there, tag us. And Leslie, I see that you've got a question, but please, if you could just add that to the Mighty Networks, that would be great. And we'll respond there.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you all again for showing up. And I just put, in case you do want to get a planner, I just put the link in the chat again. Grab it. And I appreciate you for having an interest in that, because that's already, that's the start. So you've already started. So thank you so much for showing up and for co-creating this class with us.
Beautiful.
Big appreciation.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.